And we are Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible journalism. That's what we stand for. Hello there, good afternoon, and welcome to The Pulse, coming to you live from our studios in Kokomleme on your digital terrestrial TV. This afternoon, we're free to on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. And coming up in this package, it will be helpful for the IMF to come on board. The caution from the World Bank as Ghana grapples to avert an imminent economic crisis.
It will help to have IMF on board because most creditors would ask you, what is the program underpinning this debt relief that will ensure that macroeconomic stability is restored?
And also in this package, Ghana Police Service vows to crack down on threats to Ghana's peace and stability as the service interdicts 2 of its own officers in connection with recent bullion van robberies. There's more coming through from the Ghana Police Service on this matter. Use your voices to create the changes you want to see. A call for action by the First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo to the world as the world marks International Women's Day today on the theme, Breaking the Bias.
We know conflict affects women and children the most, and yet women are largely absent from the peace table.
And there's more coming through from the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, where a national dialogue is underway. My name is Blessed Sugan. This is The Pulse, brought to you by Global Communities Digni Low Affordable Safe Sanitation. Remember that this afternoon we're streaming live on YouTube, and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV, Twitter as with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Sugan. Always a pleasure serving you here on The Pulse. And this afternoon, the international ratings agency Fitch is asking government to opt for an austerity support from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. This policy measure, experts say, will guard against the imminent collapse of the Ghanaian economy, which is experiencing its slowest growth since the 1980s. Fitch, which downgraded Ghana's economic outlook in January 2022, says an IMF bailout will be required to avert the crisis.
On the positive side, that is what things could lead to a stabilization of the rating. A resumption of access to international capital markets would be a big one. That could come from an IMF program or from a change in investor sentiment. Over the medium term, we will be paying attention to the international reserves position and whether Ghana can see a rise in non-debt creating flows like FDI. And we'll also be paying attention to whether the government can implement its fiscal consolidation plan and put public sector debt on a downward path.
And that's the position of Fitch on this matter. Fitch is not the only organization calling for this. The World Bank is also adding its voice to the prescription, with its country director, Pierre Laporte, saying it will be helpful for Ghana to have IMF on board to deal with this imminent crisis.
There's been a lot of talk about IMF or not IMF. Recently, I was asked in an interview. My basic principle is, at a starting point, no country should need IMF, really strictly speaking. Okay? Many countries in the world don't have IMF program, but they are performing very well. But the reality is, different countries need IMF. That's why they were established in the first place, because, you know, by law of nature, some countries at one time or the other will face challenges. And that's why we have institutions like IMF, the World Bank, who are here to come in those difficult times. Today, yeah, there's a lot of debate I follow in Ghana. Some people think you should, some people think you should not. I think it's not right for me to comment on it, whether you should or should not. But like I said recently, there are advantages of working with IMF in these circumstances. For instance, if Ghana really wants to go in an aggressive or very serious debt rescheduling initiative now, it will help to have IMF on board because most creditors would ask you, what is the program underpinning this debt relief that will ensure that macroeconomic stability is restored? At the same time, you know, if government really takes strong enough measures to restore macro stability, then maybe it doesn't need IMF. You know, I have to be careful because my IMF colleagues might think I'm undermining what they want to do. Like I said, it's one way or the other. But to sum up, just to say again that the situation is serious, and we at the World Bank, what are we doing? We are really supporting Minister of Finance, government through advice on tax policies. There are options that we see also, but at the same time, we are here to advise. We do not want here to force hands, but we have also instruments like budget support that we can give to help with the treasury situation. But all of this, provided there are strong enough reforms that will accompany this. And finally, just to say, you've talked a lot today about fiscal issues, tax issues. It's true that tax GDP ratio at 12-13% for a country like Ghana is not good enough. The norm for the region is around 20, and that's where most of the world will look at. But there are other challenges, like in the energy sector, that is causing so much problems for the budget. Today, as we speak, the annual deficit just for the energy sector going out of the budget is over $1 billion. It's a lot. And if nothing is done, there's a very good, very strong energy reform program. We are encouraged that, governments are really moving to implement it, but it should be accelerated because only this can save government at now $1 billion a year, or it can even avoid, if things are not done in the next 2 or 3 years, it can go much higher than.
So where is all of this starting from? The concern is about the financial year 2022, and obviously government is seeking actually to spend 137.5 billion Ghana cedis. That's the target of government through the budget statement that we've seen from the finance minister. But the challenge now is about making up for this total expenditure. This is what government is seeking to spend, but in terms of the expected revenue, we're projecting over 100 billion Ghana cedis. That's what government is seeking to use. And obviously, if you take the 100 billion out of the expenditure that we're going to be doing for this 2022 fiscal year, that will mean that there'll be a shortfall of some 37.5 billion Ghana cedis, which you have down there. Obviously, that should be of concern to us as a state. That's the amount of money government is seeking to raise. And obviously, it will need to do that from an external source. But the challenge here is that even this 100 billion cedis that we're targeting has a little bit of a problem. And the controversy here is about the electronic transaction levy. And we know what's happening in Parliament. There's a deadlock about the amount itself. So here's the implication for us. If the e-levy does not go through, the gap would then increase because that would be about 7% of this total amount coming out from the 100.5 billion that government is seeking to raise. And in fact, a larger chunk of this amount that we're looking at is heavily reliant on taxation. We'll prove that to you shortly. But if the e-levy fails to go through, which is about 7% out of this amount, that would then pile up onto the deficit which we're having, which is the imminent challenge which will be facing the Ghanaian economy. That would mean that would then require some over 40 billion Ghana cedis to make up for the expenditure that we have here, which obviously government is unable to raise now. Even meeting the 100 billion target is a challenge as we speak. But we need to paint that picture for you so you can see clearly where the problem is coming from. So this is our tax revenue and grants for the 2022 fiscal year. The challenge here is about 80% of that revenue that we are targeting, 80% of it is reliant on taxation, which tells you that government is heavily relying on taxation as a way of funding its activities. But then if the e-levy doesn't go through, which is about 7% of this, that would then mean that this will be affected, this will obviously be affected, and then that will take us back to where we started from, which is this 37 billion rising all the way over 40 billion. So there's a challenge here which government needs to address. And obviously that's why you've heard from the IMF and Fitch also asking that if you want to go onto the international market for some credit facility, you definitely need to be validated by the likes of the International Monetary Fund. Will government opt for that? Government says it's looking to generate funds internally. We've heard the president speak about that. The finance minister has made his point clear. So we are asking that big question here on the Pulse. Should Ghana head to the IMF once more, just when we exited the program in 2017? Fortunately, I've been joined by two individuals who understand all of this and what's happening. Professor John Gachi is the Dean of the Business School at the University of Cape Coast, and Lord Mensah, Dr. Lord Mensah as well, is an economist. We're grateful that you're joining us at this point. So, Dr. Mensah, first of all, what's your take on this? Where do we head to? The IMF, or are you looking, Professor Mensah, I'm sorry, are we looking at going for the internal mechanisms which will address our challenges? What do you think about this?
Well, if you look at the numbers you've projected on your screens, I mean, clearly it tells you that government is now in need of funds. And obviously, every situation of that form, every government must find a means of raising money. But then the proposal of going to IMF or not comes in two ways. I mean, you go to IMF for money and some, policy credibility. If you look at the history we've had with IMF, obviously it tells you that they don't come in with much money, but they come in with financial discipline. And I believe that if the World Bank, couple is telling us that we should go to IMF, then, it's telling us that we should go and ask for financial discipline from IMF. We go to IMF purposely because we've mismanaged our economy. And mismanagement tells you that go to IMF for IMF to come and instill some discipline, some structures, some austere measures to ensure that you follow through for a peanut. And then the investor will have assurance in your system or in your economy to lend to you. Otherwise, the market will not be open for the Ghanaian government to access funds. And even if the market is open for us, with the kind of ratings we have, we're going to only attract funds at a very high cost. And so effectively, it gives the signal that, yes, indeed, we should, go to IMF. But, you were presenting the numbers indicating that if the E-levy does not go through, there's going to be a huge gap in addition of the 37.5, which is the deficit that you indicated. Why do we have to look at that direction alone? But then also find a means of ensuring that we lower expenditure, which the government has given the signal. Anyway.
But Prof, the point is, the reason why we're, of course, focused very much on the E-levy is about the argument we've heard from government all of this while. The government appears to be very much reliant on that source of funding, and they've done all sorts of justifications as to why government needs that fund urgently.
That is the justification from the government. But then the government can also look at the expenditure side. You're looking at expenditure of about 137.5 billion. Now, if you look at the structures of our expenditure, you could see that some of them, government has control over them. And for those ones, I believe if government, becomes moderate, we should be able to manage those aspects. Let's take, for instance, if you take, what we call it, the grant to state-owned institutions. Last year, we were doing around 15 billion. This year alone, we projected around 26 billion for that, those grants to SOEs. Now, you ask yourself, within a year, what has happened to call for this jump of about 11 billion, difference in grant to SOEs? What is so special that this, state government agencies are coming to do within the year that has changed that much to attract that 11 billion? Even over there, if you decide to cut that one to, let's say, 20 billion, you have saved about 5 billion In effect, if you look at the other, indicators, which we have control over, I don't want to even mention capital expenditure, because over there, a typical Ghanaian will need his roads, typical Ghanaian will need a hospital that is supposed to be provided, typical Ghanaian will need, the markets that is supposed to be provided. So I don't want to look at that direction. But then these two items, which is non-earmark, expenditure, if government should look at that, obviously, we should be able to save some money from that to offset the e-levy that we are drafting up. Let me not go there. If you look at what is happening on the ground, it tells you that, hey, look, for you to access the international market, you will need policy credibility from the IMF, which is very true. Because historically, without the IMF, it looks like our financing or maybe financial management is a problem. Now, let me give you a typical example. When we were with IMF, we were trying possible to converge to the 5% to GDP deficit that IMF gave us, which presumably is the ideal, deficit that a country must run. Immediately after the IMF, we were praying that we get off IMF so that government will have that kind of, liberation to spend, to suit what the economy is required. Immediately after the IMF, we jumped our budget deficit to 11%, of our GDP, which tells you that, it will be difficult. And even the evidence is also clear. I think somewhere within the COVID, I remember the finance minister giving somewhere 2020, yes, around 2020, thereabout. The finance minister in his budget statement gave the indication that he has to go back to Parliament for the Fiscal Responsibility Act to be revoked, so that he can spend his way. So that he can exceed that 5% that IMF gave to us. Then I asked myself, we had Fiscal Responsibility Committee. After the 2020, how many times have they met to keep the government, in line to ensure that we converge that 5% of, GDP that IMF I'm yet to get the answer to that question.
Which is a very critical question you're asking this afternoon. In fact, we'll explore that angle shortly, but that even flies in the face of President Akufo-Addo's Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. And I guess that's why there's a lot of hesitation on the part of the Finance Ministry to begin to engage the IMF on this. Professor John Gachi is also with us. Prof, what's your take on all of this? And Professor Mensah, you could also have your take on that, just as we deal with the issues as well. The whole idea of Ghana Beyond Aid and where government finds itself now. Do we need to abandon that policy and just go to the IMF anyway? Yes, Professor Mensah.
Yeah, Ghana Beyond Aid, I've been saying that it's a project. We don't have to look at it within a particular regime. Ghana as a country must, look at this as a project for which maybe in the next 20 years we can work towards it. But looking at where we find ourselves now, I don't think, Ghana Beyond Aid is possible, because as we speak now, any free money that will drop in the way of Ghana, we will take it. So I would say that, yes, it's not possible within this particular time or this regime, but then we should take it as a project.
So how soon do we initiate the process of engaging the IMF?
Well, looking at it now, this could be part of the process. It could be the part of the process in a sense that I will call it economic learning process. Economic learning process because, the economy has dived, its nose down, and clearly all the indicators on the ground shows. And any economy that is suffering, you cannot say that you will not require an aid. Which is more or less, almost free money that is coming your way. But then in the end, if we should take it as a project and then we look at it as a learning process, if we come out, how to sustain the economy, we should be able to come out with policies to come out with this, quagmire, and then possibly look at how we can, look into the future, come out with this aid that we're talking about. But let me also chip in this. You see, if you go back to, the various manifestos that are read by political parties, if clearly we should benchmark the economic performance with, these manifestos, and then ensure that we go heads on with the manifestos. It could be that at this time would have, devoid of COVID, would have been getting closer to, the process of coming off, aid. But that is not the case. As we speak now, if you benchmark most of the things happening on the grounds to what was read in the manifesto, it will give you the signal that yes, indeed, government is not performing to the direction of coming off aid.
Okay, let's try and widen the conversation. This is not just about this particular administration. Obviously, what comes into mind is about our trajectory as a nation and how many times we've been to the IMF, for instance. We exited our last program in 2017. Professor Gachi is with us as well. The question we're asking, Prof, is about the IMF. Looking at the fact that we exited in 2017, is it good for us as a nation to head back to that same institution we went to for some credibility support?
Yeah, well, you have no choice. When the situation falls through. IMF is a fund, and I will tell you that as a country, we contribute to that fund. And so if we find ourselves in a situation where we will need some money as an injection, and then at the same time, the funds that we will need will come and instill some discipline of, let me put it, financial discipline, then I think we have no choice. And it tells everybody that we are going back to IMF as a result of financial mismanagement.
Right, but Professor Mensah, I was trying to find out from Professor Gachi as well. Professor John Gachi, what do you also think about this? The question as to the fact that we exited the IMF in 2017. Professor Gachi, what's your take really on this?
Well, I'm not sure we exited the IMF in 2017. We rather extended the original exiting period of 2017 to 2018, 2019, thereabouts.
Right.
So I think that should be put in the perspective that we have. But the point is that you go to IMF basically because you have done all that you could to restore your economy to normal, but you are not able. What that means is that your policies are not receiving the confidence that the international environment want to put on your policies. Domestic institutions do not believe that your policies are working. Citizens gradually are not having confidence in the way things are being managed. So these two things will prompt you either to go to the IMF or not. And I believe we have done all that we could. We have touted so many things, but things are not working. So if the government, given the comments made by the credit rating agencies and given the comment Ghanaians are making, it is very clear that the policy direction of the government lacks the confidence, lacks the credibility. And it is then that the IMF comes in to restore some kind of discipline and confidence into your programs and your policies so that you can quickly turn around. I believe that is what the government is running away from, because the moment you go to IMF, it is an acceptance that your policies lack all the economy. It's a valuation that the country.
Yes, and is it the case that we are in a crisis, as for instance, we've heard the country director of the World Bank say that where we're heading to is a bit dangerous for us?
We are in a deeper crisis from all perspectives. If you come to the fiscal aspect, we are in deeper crisis, and the nature of the crisis is such that the fiscal crisis is actually eating into the efficacy of monetary policy performance. And so it is eating into the key areas that we want to see about our economy. So we are in a crisis. This has been accepted by the finance minister. The government officials these days are now speaking to the fact that the country is broke. It's broke because the fiscal is weak. It's broke because monetary policy is not able to perform according to the mandate because of the fiscal dominance that has taken place. So yes, the economy is in deeper crisis. That needs some resolution quickly. As to whether we want to go to IMF, that should be an evaluation that should be made. And one pointer to the evaluation is whether or not our policies resonate with the people, whether or not our policies have the credibility and the confidence. And I can say that we lack the confidence, we lack the credibility.
The question is, what difference really will it make? Here we are. We've worked with the IMF for not just once. We've done that over a couple of years, dating way back to the 80s. Why are these strategies not working? And why should we be going back to the Bretton Woods anyway?
Well, I'm not sure the strategies have not worked, but the discipline that made the strategy work when the IMF is with us, we do not keep to that discipline when the IMF is out. That is our basic problem. In 2006, when we exited the IMF program, just after that, we took the largest Euro bond in Sub-Saharan Africa of $750 million, which we amortized in 2017. If you look at the recent IMF program, even though I was not so happy about the just ended IMF program, because some of the discipline that we see to be on the board were not available as though we are not under IMF program. But the issue is, if we could keep to the discipline, policy credibility that we put in place under IMF program, even when they are not here, we wouldn't go back to IMF. So it is the question of whether we as people, our management style is such that we are able to keep discipline, sustain discipline, and do things that are supposed to be done within the framework of proper fiscal management, proper economic management. That is what we are lacking. And I do not think that the blame should go squarely to the IMF.
Can Ghana really move beyond aid? That's been the agenda of the president. We've heard from his appointees expressing full resolve to push through that agenda. Why is it taking too long to materialize?
Well, it is something that we can do, but I can tell you that there is nothing like Ghana Beyond Aid as a framework that we are following in Ghana. It is actually a slogan that has been translated to about 30-page document without any plan of execution. So I'm not sure that we are implementing Ghana Beyond Aid. If you go to Parliament, there is an agreed medium-term framework that has been approved for government as a policy framework to implement. There is nothing like Ghana Beyond Aid. There is no pillars of Ghana Beyond Aid within all the sectors of the economy. There is no Ghana Beyond Aid into the psychic of educational curriculum and implementation. There is nothing like that in agriculture. So I do not think that we are implementing Ghana Beyond Aid, and we need to tell ourselves the bitter truth.
Right, and we need to be wrapping up with this conversation. I'll give a minute each to Professor Mensah and then you, Professor Gachi. Let me start off with you, Professor Lord Mensah. Your final takes on this. Where do we go from here, IMF or no IMF?
Well, I think we better go to IMF because history has never been on our side when it comes to self-discipline in our financial management space. And so effectively, we'll go to IMF, and IMF, the period that IMF will be with us, if it's 3 years, 4 years, and in the end, we will turn up with discipline when it comes to our finances. I will propose that we go to IMF. But then also, alternatively, if we can be disciplined when it comes up, but I don't think history has been supporting that when it comes to, self-discipline in our financial management space. So the best would be for us to go to IMF, so that we can get some policy credibility.
And for you, Professor John Gachi, what will be your final take on this?
Well, I think we have not demonstrated that we have the discipline and capacity to stay on course. We do not have the discipline to manage the affairs the way it ought to be managed. We need a greater force to do so. It is now the duty of the government to weigh the option. I would not recommend go to IMF. They should weigh their management style and their capacity. If they come to that realization that indeed they are not capable of ensuring the kind of discipline that is needed, then the IMF will be the option. But that decision, I want the government to take that decision.
Right then, and I'm sure that definitely we'll be keeping our eyes on all of this. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us, Professor Lord Mensah and Professor John Gachi, all giving us their thoughts on what's happening as far as the economy is concerned. We will be bringing you some more updates as and when we have that. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And this is what we need to tell you. The Ghana Police Service says it will continue to rid the country of criminal activities that disrupts the peace and stability of the nation. The assurance actually follows the interdiction of 2 police officers in connection with multiple bullion van robberies here in the Greater Accra region. Some 4 other persons are in police custody over the recent attacks. Well, what you need to know now is that the Ghana Police Service has issued a statement on this, giving us a breakdown of why and how they've made some arrests actually in connection with the recent bullion van robberies. And you see that on your screens now, the Ghana Police Service indicating that after several months of painstaking intelligence-led operations at the highest level, they've made a major breakthrough in the investigations into the multiple bullion van robberies recorded in the Greater Accra area. These are Kingsway, we also have Bachuna, and also Jamestown, as well as attempted robbery at North Kaneshie. These are 4 incidents. Point 2 indicates that preliminary investigations have actually established the involvement of 2 police officers among the number of other suspects who've been picked up. The investigations are continuing, and the Ghana Police Service says that they expect to soon bring all culpable persons to face justice. Point 3 talks about the fact that the public will be giving some further details as soon as possible to give some updates on the ongoing investigations. And point 4 is an assurance which says that, quote, "We wish to assure the general public that the Ghana Police Service will continue to work hard to rid our country of criminal activities that disrupt the peace and stability of the nation. We therefore call on all to support us in this endeavor." So here's what we need to do. We need to break down some issues for you. Recent robbery activities involving persons working with the security agencies across the country. Probably we need to take it way back from 2020, where it all started from, and you can have that now on your screens, where in April 2020 there was a similar incident. A police somewhere in Asankragwa in the Ashanti region was arrested. Then it involved 2 national security personnel and 9 persons. This was an incident where 2 officials who were supposed to be working in the interest of the state were actually allegedly working in collusion with 9 persons to rob the Atala gold concentration area. And in November 2021 as well, there was another one which happened at Kokrobite, and police intelligence led to the arrest of 4 suspects, including 1 identified as a national security operative. That was not all. There was a 3rd incident as well this year, just when we started the year, up north, Boli, where 4 suspects, 1 immigration officer, and 3 policemen. So this is not the first time 2 persons have been interdicted, as we're indicating, but 3 persons were interdicted for stealing during an operation in the Boli district. And that's how surprising that situation was. But this current one we have is about the recent bullion van robberies here in the Greater Accra region, indicating a clear involvement of some police officials as well. So what's the indication and implication actually of all that's happening? Joining us now is Dr. Ishmael Norman. Norman, I should say. He is with the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, president of the group as well. Honorable Peter Lonchini-Tubu is MP for Wild West. He will join us a little later, but Adib Sani is also on. He is a security analyst. They all understand what's happening now and how we got here. Let me start off with you, Mr. Norman, on this. What's your take really, knowing that some policemen are actually working with these criminals to rob the innocent citizen?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think police of men and women are human, Ghanaians, and they see an opportunity. They see the gaps within the police enforcement mechanism, and they try to exploit it. So the police will always have elements like that, just as we have crooked parliamentarians or university students or medical doctors. It is not unique to Ghana police to have miscreants. The police is a microcosm of the society of Ghana. And so just as we have criminals within the broader society of Ghana, we will have criminals within the minor society of the Ghana Police Force. So I don't blame the police administration. I don't even blame the recruitment mechanism, because the way we recruit students to the university system is no different from the way we recruit police officers. And it's the due diligence after you recruit them that will help you fight it out if with the police force where there is absolutely no miscreant within the force. It's not possible.
And is it the case that you feel this is attributable to the lack of professionalism or the dwindling level of professionalism within the Ghana Police Service? Is that what you're attributing all of this to?
Oh, no. I think we should commend the Ghana Police for the work they have done in ferreting out two of their men that were involved in the bullion van, and which probably would lead to the arrest of a few more people. I think we have to put everything in context. It is not the IGP or the Ghana Police Administration that instructed the men to go bad. They decided, they made a rational choice. And so we cannot blame the administration. We have to look at the individual people. And one of the things they can do to actually reduce the incidence of officers going bad is to monitor and surveil them, spy on them, and make sure that they are actually noticing what changes in their lifestyle. They should do random drug tests, urine tests, to see if guys are on narcotics and whatever, because if somebody has a drug habit, this is just an example, the chances of him wanting more money to buy more drug is very, very high. And there are a whole lot of things that the police force can do to monitor their personnel. But in terms of bad people, they are in the universities, lecturers, we have bankers that are bad, we have politicians that are really horrible, we have parents that are bad, we have bank. So you cannot blame the Ghana police just because several of them decide rationally to become criminal.
All right, then. Let's bring in Adib Sani as well. Adib, you've been monitoring all of these issues. In fact, just last week, we're speaking to you on some of these cases. What do you make of the revelation we're getting from the Ghana Police Service now that two of its own officers are actually culpable in this case?
I mean, it's an unfortunate incident because since the IGP assumed office as an IGP, one of the things he's done is to, as it were, build confidence in the police service. When a lot of things have been done on the ground to get people like yourself and myself to have confidence and trust in the police service. So when things of this nature happen, it negates the successes that have been chalked over the period. But I am tempted to agree with Dr. Norman Hookline and Sinka. The police service is a human institution. And like any other human institution, you're bound to have, some bad nuts. And so I would find it unfair for anyone to paint all of the police service with a single stroke of brush because of the actions and inactions of a few of the officers. There are a lot of very well motivated other, officers who are out there putting their lives on the line to ensure that you and I are safe. Even in the most advanced jurisdictions, I don't know if you've heard about the Dirty 30 police scandal that rocked Harlem in New York, when 29 officers were interdicted and later charged for drug offenses. So this happens to almost every police institution. But my biggest problem might be with the rampant nature of it. If it becomes more like a daily ritual, then we would have every reason to be worried, because it would dent the image of the police in the eyes of the public, which I must say would complicate the way they do their work.
And if we could just bring to your attention the statement that we're having from the Ghana Police Service. In fact, the Ghana Police Service issued a statement, and on point 4 of the statement that they issued, they're giving clear indications and giving assurances that they will deal with issues of crime here in the country. Are you convinced by the assurance that they're giving at point 4 of the statement, which they're releasing to the public now?
Well, obviously, I mean, the fact that the police even comes out with this information in the first place is indicative of their unflinching commitment to dealing with crime, whether it is their own or not. And one of the issues I've observed about the police service is the seeming lack of accountability. But I've seen in recent times that IGP Dampare is taking none of that. I mean, whether you are a law enforcement officer or a politician, once you fall foul of the law, it has to catch up with you. So if really we want to deal with the threat, we need to nip in the bud the cycle of impunity. This also gives us a unique opportunity, in as much as it is detestable, to take a closer look at the recruitment regime. You see, there are two sides of the coin. Either the officer was already a criminal before he was recruited into the police service, or perhaps he got compromised on the way. And when you take a closer look at the processes involved in the police recruitment, what do we call it, procedure, the first is the completion of the police application form. Then you would attend an assessment center. After that, you go for an exams and, of course, an interview. They also undergo medicals and fitness tests. Then the most important part of it, which is the background checks, is also done. And the question is, to what extent do we check the backgrounds of these individuals who come into the police service? Because when you go to other jurisdictions, and there's an international best practice so far as background checks is concerned, they check to see if you have ever engaged in any felony, if you've ever been convicted of any felony, if you've engaged in any serious misdemeanor, if you are into drug use or past drug use, if you were dishonorably discharged from the military or any other security service, if you have a bad credit history. That includes a student SNIT loans, you know, we used to take when we were in school.
All right.
It's also about the history of domestic violence, unreported past crimes, etc. So the question is, to what extent do we, you know, investigate to know the kind of people we recruit into the police service?
Which you feel they are not, which you feel they are not really doing. Let's wrap up on this conversation. Dr. Norman, as we wrap up, what's your expectation of the police going forward in dealing with some of these cases? Dr. Norman, we're having a challenge hearing you. If you could unmute for us so we get the point you're making. It appears we're having some challenges. Honorable Peter Lonchene-Tubu is a former service person himself. He is now a member of parliament. So let's get his thoughts also on what's happening. Welcome to the polls. First of all, the police service has interdicted 2 of its own personnel, allegedly for involving in acts that led to the robbery incidents that we recently witnessed here in the Greater Accra region. Are you surprised about this development? Honorable Peter Tubu, I'm asking if you're surprised about the latest revelation we're getting from the Ghana Police Service. We seem to have a very poor connection.
Can I say something?
Well, Adib, so yes, Adib, you can wrap it up for us. What point do we go home with? Particularly now we know that the Ghana Police Service says it is continuing with investigations.
We need to look at the recruitment mechanism to ensure that the proper background checks is done. A lot of it also has to do with the psyche of the police officers. To what extent do we train them? Do we imbibe that sense of patriotism in them? Because trust me, they come across a lot of juicy offers. So if you can imagine, if at the end of the month you're supposed to take home 2,500 cedis, then from nowhere someone gives you an offer of 100,000 Ghana cedis. I mean, it will take a lot of wit, a lot of professionalism, and that sense of patriotism for you to say no. And of course, we also need to deal with the issue of impunity and get officers to understand that oblivion of whether you are an officer or not, the uniform you wear doesn't grant you that invisibility, and the right things has to be done.
Right. We need to wrap up. I'm grateful, gentlemen, for joining us. Honorable Peter Tobo, I understand is back on the lines. Honorable, I was asking if you're surprised about the revelation that 2 of the officers were interdicted in this recent bullion van robbery attacks that we're learning of.
Thank you very much. Let me say thank you for the opportunity granted me to make some few statements about this serious matter. Everybody in this country, including the police, is a potential criminal. I've always said that. I am not surprised that the police have identified some people amongst themselves to be probably getting connected with the serious crime that we've all been looking at. I am not surprised because, you know, the police service is a society and it's controlled by systems. There are entry requirements, there is a maintenance portion, and there is an exit strategy. So at the entry point, that is the recruitment, there are processes that people go through. Of course, it's not a watertight system. So you might find 1 or 2 slipping through the system. But when you slip through the system, Ghana Police Service Regulation 2012 ensures that because of continuous supervision and monitoring, you will be identified one day and flashed out. And that is exactly what has happened to these young people that I suspect they got into the grips of their own system. At retirement, it is expected that, at least I have always suggested this, that the police will ensure that they do exit interviews. Somebody has been in the service for 40 years, and when he's about to go home, nobody talks to him or her. Nobody takes down the experiences over the years to document them for others to come and learn. So let's look at what is it at the entry point that we need to do better. What is it that at the maintenance stage, the period that you are in active service, that we need to continuously monitor and make you look better? And what is it that we need to get from you at the tail end of your service when you are retiring? If you're able to do this, I'm sure that we'll continue to build a watertight system to ensure that, you know, the police service says that if you are not qualified to be there and you find your way to be there through other means, the system will expose you and you'll be flushed out. Today, these young men have been gotten by the system. And if it is proven that they were really involved, they will be flushed out of the system.
There are questions about the recruitment process going into the Ghana Police Service. I mean, how is it possible that someone would go into the police service without due diligence in terms of checking their backgrounds? What was the experience like when you were in the service, and what can you say about the process now?
Thank you very much. When I was joining the service, some 25 years ago, what happened was that after all the processes, there was something we called positive vetting. Positive vetting is the last phase that will qualify you to be trained and pushed out there as a police officer. And I was told by my father, when I graduated and went home, that the BNI people, those days now we call them NIB, they went to my village, spoke to my father, spoke to my mother, spoke to friends that I attended school with. They went to my primary school, went to my middle school, went to my secondary school. And they got everything that was supposed to build me into who I am today. So they are actually looking at proving that I am a person with moral integrity, that I am a person with integrity, that I am somebody who is amenable to training, that I'm somebody without any criminal record in the past. And after that, the criminal investigation department will take your fingerprint and run you through the system. And that is why if you have a national database of biodata, I'm sure that if they run your biodata through the system, you have ever committed any crime anywhere, it will be detected and you will be prevented from donning the uniform as a police officer or even as a soldier. But these days, we seem to be dropping or downplaying the importance of positive vetting. If it is a financial challenge, it is better to recruit 1,000 people and do proper positive vetting and get them into the system than to recruit 5,000 people. Out of that, probably 10 or 15 of them will be criminals. One criminal in police uniform is more dangerous than 100 armed robbers. Okay, then
what's your recommendation? Would you recommend that at this point, at least, we should have an audit of the police service? Would that be too much of a cumbersome process? Asking that we check the police service, do another thorough background check of some of the new recruits, or perhaps we go back to a certain threshold in terms of timeline?
It is all about funding. I'm sure that, the police service is quite old enough. If we have enough money and we decide that we are going to do reforms, and we go to do complete reforms of the Ghana Police Service, looking at the new policing required in the 21st century, I'm sure that it wouldn't be a bad thing, but it's all about funding. There is a lot that has gone in there probably through wrong hands, and if we go in for reforms, a lot can be done to weed out the rot. One criminal detected in the police service is like a pandemic. One criminal detected wearing police uniform should be treated as a pandemic, and we should take it serious. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We shouldn't be excited about it because this is not the first time. It is neither the last time we are going to see this, but we need to rise up as a people to do something about it so that collectively we'll have a system that is better to monitor people who are wearing uniform, to ensure that they are accountable and accountable to the people and the law as well.
Peter Lonchinitobu, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse. We're still keeping our eyes on the northern part of the country because the Northern Regional Crime Officer Superintendent Bernard Baba Ananga has actually assured the people of the Tamale metropolis that security will continue to actually patrol the city to ensure life and property are safe. He said there's heavy deployment of both plain and ununiformed police officers, the anti-terrorism units, the military, and the Operation Calm Life team to actually continue these patrols to ensure that the city is actually safe. He said this while he outlined some of the things the security is actually doing to keep the city calm.
We invited the military already. We normally do this Calm Life, so they had to increase their numbers, and we also put out more uniformed policemen with our counter-terror unit, as well as plainclothes. So we went into the patrols within the city, the metropolis, all the areas that matter, and then subsequently we did it up to this morning where we closed, and then the day patrols continue.
How long will these patrols continue, or how long will it stay?
These patrols have come to stay. We want to assure the public that there is peace. Any person at all can go about his own business without any problem. Assure them of their safety, that the metropolis is under control and the security services are on the ground. So it's going to continue as long as we deem fit. It's not going to cease now.
Will there be something different you'll be doing, or is just going to be what you are doing currently?
A lot of strategies put in place. We also will increase our plainclothes, our intelligence setup. Other places that we normally don't visit, we'll visit there. And then also we'll be effecting arrest. We will not just sit down and say that yes, anybody walking by or doing anything is doing a normal thing. We will assume suspicious characters are out there to foment trouble for us, and we'll be effecting arrest.
Now, yesterday we're told that some names were given, some fingers were pointed at some people. Have you invited anybody for questioning yet or arrested anyone?
Yes, we are interviewing people. Of course, some of them are pointing, accusing fingers to certain kinds of persons. That is not the interest of the investigation. What we are pursuing, those 15 men who were on board that particular vehicle that went to the chief palace and fired at people. These are the people we're interested in. Not go around giving our attention to something that will not, at the end of the day, give us the benefits that we are looking for. So therefore, we are on a manhunt for this 15.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. When we return, don't forget that it's the International Women's Day. We'll be bringing you some updates from Kumasi, where the First Lady has been urging young girls around the country to push to break the bias.
Are largely absent from the peace.
And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Bias is not normal. The words of the First Lady, Rebecca Akufo-Addo, as Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark the International Women's Day today. This edition of the annual celebration is focusing on the theme, Breaking the Bias, which looks to honor women who are smashing down stereotypes and highlighting those who continue to push back boundaries, not just for themselves, but for all women across the world. Speaking at the National Dialogue a couple of hours ago in Kumasi, First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo urged young women to use their voices to create the change they wish to see.
Gender equality before the law still does not translate into reality. We know conflict affects women and children the most, and yet women are largely absent from the peace table. Studies, however, show there is a 35% greater chance of peace agreements lasting 15 years when women participate. So if women are integral to peace, why do we largely exclude them from peace negotiations? Women are still paid less than men for the same work. Yet there's educationists and healthcare providers. My generations and generations before me have put in their time to address these biases. I salute all those women and men who have worked for a world of parity. It is now time for my generation to pass on the baton to the younger generation. You are now the front line for advocating for a gender-equal world. We are behind you, supporting with our insights, resources, and years of experiences in the trenches. That is why this year for our International Women's Day discussions. As nature dictates, the old must always give way to the new. The Equality Front needs new blood, renewed energy, fresher perspective, and a new kind of hunger. The truth is impatience or indignation at the obvious gender biases that still exist. But we have a generation that is presented with technology and the immense possibilities for intense activism. At the touch of a button, at the click of an icon, you have access to the world, including decision makers. This was something that was unimaginable decades ago. It's time for you to negotiate your way to equality and the removal of biases. I have no doubt about your ability and hunger is vital to your becoming the person you want to be. Use your voices to create the change you want.
Chief of Staff Kosefima Opare is also urging women across the country to take advantage of government policies which will pave way for them to take up bigger roles in the Ghanaian society.
Have enhanced equality in education opportunities, which relates to the SDGs that seeks to promote gender equality and empowerment of women. However, there is still great gender disparity in how related to science, technology, engineering, mathematics, which we now call STEM. Ladies and gentlemen, Bias against women in the workplace and how to tackle it also continue to be a major challenge. Formal sector of the economy. As such, they have no steady income and no social security. Even though women and girls carry the majority of care and domestic burden in every employed in the formal sector. And where they are employed, they tend to earn lower wages. Biases also in the political space, among others, remain a challenge considering the hostile political atmosphere in Ghana, which deters a lot of. The worst is that with this kind of hostile political atmosphere, women are less likely to be able to influence government policy. It is time for the younger generation to rise up, taking advantage of the favorable education policy for higher level jobs.
And what we do know is that there's a global effort actually going on as we speak to break the bias, which is the theme for this year's celebration. Joining us now to have a conversation on this, to respond when I'm at Tutono. She is the Executive Director for Global Action for Women Empowerment. She is joining us now. Ama Jampo is CEO for Sales Africa. We'll deal with that shortly, but welcome, ladies, to the program. Let me start off with you, Awenam. What's your take on today's celebration, the fact that you have a global action, not just in Ghana, but around the world, asking that the bias be broken?
Thank you. And on my take, global action for women empowerment is basically meant for empowering women. And today, marking the International Women's Day, we want to advocate more for and push women to occupy a lot of positions and also engage in activities that were not previously being done by women. We are pushing for gender equity in our local level, because we normally work with the local communities, and also at the national level, empower women to know that, yes, they have a lot of work to do, either apart from their normal activities that society has made them to know that, yes, this is the work of a woman, or that is the work of a woman. So we want to keep on advocating and pushing women to occupy more positions and get works and get their terms of conditions to be favorable in the workplace. Yeah.
Ama Jampo is also with us. Ama, we're celebrating women today. What's your impression of the national effort and the collective action we're seeing, not just from women as well, but some men are also joining in the celebration? What's your take on all of this, the developments and happenings across the country and across the world as well?
Hello, good evening. Thanks for having me on. I think it's great that we celebrate women on a daily basis. You know, there's a picture, I'm sure some of you have seen, with a line of athletes at the start-off line, right, for a race. And the men are on one side, the women are on another side. And the women have so many barriers in their place. They've got the washing, the dishes, the family, the children, the volunteering duties, so many barriers in our way. And so I think it's great that we celebrate women and the male allies that assist us along the way, especially our partners at home, in the family. But I think we need to have a broader conversation around gender equity in the workplace, in the boardroom, across society, and to really try and break the bias, which is the theme for this year's celebration. We need to, stop the name calling. She's too much. She's being difficult. She's too ambitious. There's so many, things that stand in our way, and I think it's perpetuated in the workplace and in society. So again, I think it's great that we celebrate women once a day, and in the month of March across the world and nationally, but we have a long way to go.
And when we talk about breaking the bias, I guess that's not a broad stroke. There may be variations across the world, and even in our case here in Ghana. What's your assessment of the situation here in Ghana? What kind of biases do we need to deal with in our society?
I think there are a lot of biases around the role of a woman and how a woman should be, or how a woman should act. And so I think women are so multifaceted. There's so many talents and things that we do. We juggle and manage so many things at once on a regular basis, and even more so now than maybe for our parents' generation. So it's really a matter of just understanding that women are multifaceted and shouldn't be dismissed based on the fact that they are represented as a token on a board or in a position of power in maybe politics, for example. We see a lot of bashing of women in high-profile positions and a lot of limiting behaviors. Women are still told to go to the back of the room, even in boardrooms today. These are stories that we still hear. A woman who has risen through the ranks and has, set up themselves as someone of merit and has proved themselves as someone of merit is still told to go to the back of the room in some certain rooms and conversations. And so this is really symptomatic of how we regard women in society, and to just signal the fact that we have a long way to go in bringing more male allies into the conversation, and even just educating more people through communication of successful women, how they've made it, what they've had to do to juggle their home lives with their work lives. Is very much an integrated approach in terms of building a career to the very top, if that's possible for a woman to do, and if she so chooses to want a career at the top. But we cannot do it without the male allies, and we have a lot of work to do in changing some of the perceptions and educating people, even women. Women ourselves can be our worst enemies. In terms of perpetuating some of the biases and the stereotypes and the discrimination that we continue to see at all levels of society and business.
Collective action you're calling for, but Ewenam, you also with us. Where do we start from in terms of dealing with the biases?
Well, we have to start with our homes. We need to start reshaping the home and training our children to grow out from this bias, and we shouldn't segregate the roles of a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. So we need to really start from our homes, and then we can grow up with it. Yeah.
All right then, Ewenam, I'm grateful. But for you, Amajampo, what's your final take on this? Where do we start from and where do we end in terms of breaking the bias?
Well, we definitely need to advocate for breaking down barriers in the workplace and learning more about how women can be a massive asset to GDP and development goals, sustainable development goals in particular. We need to create more stories around women who have made it to the top and how they have done that. We need to educate more male allies and male colleagues in all facets of our lives on how to deal with women and how to address women. Even the language of dealing with women it's really important for us to sort of get with the program and understand some of the ways that we can improve the narrative around dealing with women, and to help us to really amplify the best of our female leaders and share their stories really and support them to keep doing what they do.
And this may sound a bit controversial. Why are men not in the women equation?
Why men and not the women? It's a collective responsibility, right? We all have a responsibility. Women are also very conservative. I find in Ghana, very conservative, just as the men are very conservative. So I think we all need to shape up the conversation. And it's not for anyone to dictate to any woman or man how they should behave, but just to value the fact that, women have a massive contribution to make in terms of development, the economy, social fabric of life. These are really important things that we need to do and respect.
I'm grateful. Amajampo, CEO for Sales Africa. Earlier you heard from Ewenam as well, joining us here on The Pulse. We're celebrating women as well. Don't forget that at the Makola market here in the Crown, some traders as well are calling for equal opportunities for all persons. Mavna and Cynthia, both former traders there, shared their experiences juggling between family life and making ends meet while navigating a society biased against women. My colleague Michael Achele was there and has been interacting with these traders.
The world is marking International Women's Day, and we are here in Makolo Market to speak to some of the hardworking, arguably one of the most hardworking women that we have in the country, women here at Makolo Market here, to interact with them, to understand their perspectives on International Women's Day. The world says breaking the bias, the theme that christening this year's celebration. So I'll be speaking to some of the market women here. I have one market woman here who will tell us her name briefly. She has a son here, definitely telling you how she's much interested in making sure her son is educated and the hard work she puts into getting her goods also. So, Mami Patrick was saying?
Mabra.
Okay. Ante Mabra, and then you be say, in my moya den amu manage if you nyama sanso baha be juma. How difficult is it?
Me sorry 3 o'clock. E wo fie. Sorry ye aduane e de ma me ma no de obeka wo fie no na mafawe me dware no me siesie no bibia by 4 o'clock except me be fa car na me be krom so ye be krom so I be hye dwa o share time na bo be to say 7 and 7:30 so me siesie akora no ho na me de ko school nti ekwan be fa so abeton ade abenye ska so be boa ofie ahwe enkwala no e ma ne se ye nkasa ye bre ese ye chen mema no e ma ne bre ofie kura chen e mema ese ma ne ye hard kura chen e mema no be so ra ma che utra ka mu kura e ma nko a ne ye tekem benya be ma be miensa pe ne wom nti e ma no so no ene ye dai so mutimi ye den mudi ma ye pa ne ma ne ye bre.
And we say happy International Women's Day to all women out there. Will definitely be supporting you as men as well. But it's time now to take you to the Ashanti region. We are learning of some tension which is on the rise there in the Formina constituency of the Ashanti region. Some members, aggrieved members of the governing New Patriotic Party there are protesting against leadership of the party. The youth are actually questioning the rationale behind the exemption of the constituency in the party's election for polling executive. We do know that quite a lot is happening within the New Patriotic Party in terms of its reorganization process, but that has been fraught with a number of concerns. Emmanuel Doma is actually with that group. He's joining us now, mounting pressure on the leadership to act fast, else they'll defect to the NDC. Emmanuel, welcome to the polls. First of all, let me find out from you, why are you taking this a step up? We understand that you're set to actually go to the national executive and request for something to be done urgently within the Formina constituency. What's your concern, really?
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm asking, yes, you can go ahead. I'm asking about your exact concerns. Why you've decided, for instance, and if you can see on the screens now, you've changed the picture, the colors on your party office within the Formina constituency. This is part of all the concerns that you're raising. I mean, demonstrating and protesting against your national leadership. What's your exact concern? That's what I'm asking.
The exact concern is that, in fact, we are only informing our party leadership concerning supported and what they are trying to do to the faithful people of Formina constituency concerning the polling station election. 2020 elections, you heard what went on at Formina constituency. All over the Ghana, Formina became a hot cake and a political eye in the arena of election. What we are trying to say is that those who contested or those who supported the independent candidates and contested the independent candidates should not be allowed to take form in the party, because Article 39(1) says anybody who moves or eliminates himself from the party has no right to come back again unless a written document, and if such written document is even coming, the person has to state reasons why he left and why the person is coming back. We have not heard anything from our party leadership. All that we heard is that they are going to impose the independent candidate who lambasted President Akufo-Addo and MPP, who disrespected MPP and President Akufo-Addo on us. We stand on this by saying that it is unconstitutional in our party and they cannot impose anybody on us, because such people or such group of people have never respected the party. Somebody who said another is a liar, another cannot decide for.
I understand the point you're raising, but I'm asking if that's why you went ahead, changed the colors on the party office.
In fact, we went for a float, and our return, we met that some of a group have also changed the color of the party office. In fact, yesterday afterwards, we turned again and went in for a party color to paint, and then we painted back to the party color. We are not interested in changing the party color, but we are interested in communicating to the party if they have not even read that statement that says after 3-9 anybody who moves away from the party go forever.
Okay, so what's your finally, because we don't have all of the time, I'm afraid because Emmanuel, because we don't, Emmanuel, I'm sorry, but because we don't have all of the time, within a minute, just tell us what's your demand from the national leadership of the NPP. In a minute, tell us about it, and then we can wrap up.
To use the same law that says we should focus on our party and our elections. The same party who wrote letter and dismissed the independent candidates and the supporters at the quiet, they should do the same thing as Commonwealth.
Okay, then. Emmanuel Doma speaking to us there. Emmanuel, I'm afraid, would have to end this conversation because we're also still celebrating women. Don't forget that coming up in the next few minutes, we'll be bringing you a documentary on the gallant women of the Ghana Armed Forces. That's what we're doing now as we celebrate the International Women's Day. That documentary is right coming up your way.
I was born and bred in Accra, specifically in Bema Camp.
I am married with 2 kids, and currently I'm living with my husband, my mom, and the kids.
I was born in the Upper East, that was Bolga. I had all my education in Accra.
Okay, growing up, I would say my parents have been strict. My dad has been strict. It's nowadays that he has grown old, so he has switched up, but he used to be strict.
My dad wasn't that strict, but my mom was very strict.
I live alone. My mom comes occasionally. My mother-in-law, when my mother is not able, she has something to do in Accra, my mother-in-law touches in and helps with the kid.
Planning first, and then support from family, husband, and that's it.
Education on the whole is very important because currently in this our 21st century, if you don't even have basic education, you'll not get anywhere. I mean now, hairdressers, tailors, all those other professionals, they need the basic education.
The girl child has to be educated. It will interest you to know that we are 8 girls and 2 boys. And my dad purposed, and my mom, let me not leave my mom out, that they will educate every single daughter of theirs, at least to secondary school level. And that was just what they did. It came with criticism. People pass all kinds of snide remarks. Girls will marry and stuff like that. So why are you wasting money on them? They said, they are my children. I will educate them.
Even with the community, if I'm around, they will come. Minta oni ocho se mbila hanu. Imbile nke ya school. Esmo ne baya. No minta oni ocho se lan. So at times I have to come in.
Educating girls is very important. At first, they had the mentality that educating girls was a waste of time. But now, every man wants a working class woman to help in taking care of the house, everything. So if you educate your girl child, it's good. The child will not become a liability on the husband.
I've been in the game of hockey since 2006. I've been in junior team throughout to the senior team. So I can play and keep at the same time.
Some people think being a career woman, you cannot handle a home in addition to being a career woman. But I always let them know that it is it can be done. So it can always be combined.
My mom has been visiting me because of the nature of the work. So sometimes she do come to visit me. She spent like some weeks. And when I gave birth to, she was here with me for almost 6 months before she left, before I took my daughter to school.
So my parents didn't decide for me. They looked on. After each process, I come back with a good report and we rejoice together. But to say go or don't go, it was out of the way. So then, will I say that the community influence? Maybe, and my own decision.
They pushed me. My elder brother, the second born, he urged me on. At a point, you know, I wanted to switch off.
When I'm not working and I'm at home, I do every house chores. I wash, I cook, I wash my car, I prepare my kids for school, I clean my room. Virtually everything. I do everything.
By the time you come home, you are exhausted. The little ones will push you. So you just do something. And luckily for me, I'm not with my husband, so I do what I do to survive. I just cook something, I eat. The little ones, I give them, they eat. Sometimes I go down, my parents are just there, so I go and purchase more from them.
Friends. I don't have so many friends. I don't have so many friends. My boys keep me so busy. I don't have time going, visiting people. I do that sometimes, but it is not something I do often. It's not something I do often.
Not too many friends, but these days of mobile phone and WhatsApp, visits are very limited. Hitherto, yes, we could visit, go the length and breadth of Accra. But these days, I guess either we are growing or technology has brought in some relief of traveling, or both. I belong to Agro International, Women's Agro, and I have a number of friends in there.
I belong to a family of 6, including my parents. We are 2 girls, 2 boys.
My family, we are 5. I'm the 3rd born.
I like dancing, I like music, I like sports. I like sports a lot. So either I play volley, tennis. I used to play tennis a lot. So now that I'm a family woman, so I hardly do, but I like tennis a lot.
It's not a profession for me, it's a hobby.
My hobbies used to be reading, writing, and dancing.
I like playing volleyball a lot, so if I'm not reading, maybe sometimes I feel like being at the park.
Hobbies, I would say cooking. Yes.
We have a spare time. Brigadier General Constance Emefa Ijani Afeno.
I am Naval Lieutenant Priscilla Amito Beda Ntokoto. I'm currently the acting 2IC of the Navy Training School.
I'm Flight Lieutenant Abna Ofusia Dosinamwa, a number 1 squadron pilot.
LAC Atida Georgina Lamisi. I'm a technician in number 1 squadron.
I am Corporal Dogbe Beatrice Ajo of Recce Regiment.
Growing up, I didn't want to become a technician. I wanted something more higher than a technician. I wanted to become a pilot.
I'm a pilot because I thought it was a prestigious field and I wanted to find myself in it. And it's usually known to be a male-dominated field. So I just wanted to be part of it.
Military is a structured institution and it lays out exactly what it wants and what its expectations are. For the females, it has spelled out what it expects of its females and the roles the men play.
My superiors were very happy. As a female technician, they were very happy with us and helping us in doing the work, showing us, giving us the guidelines. So they encourage us.
Their reaction was, wow, we are having more women to join us. So they were happy for having women in the driving mechanic department, because they think driver mechanic is all about men.
If you go to them with an issue, they will share with you their experiences. That one I'll not lie. Ever since I joined the military, the men may pass light remarks about us. They may want to deny us this, that, but go to them, very supportive.
I wanted to challenge the status quo. I wanted people to know that what the men are doing, the women can also do the same.
I trained for 6 months, and afterwards I was sent to school, taking training on what I'll be coming to do for 3.5 years before I started working.
Training of 15 months at the military academy. And after the military academy, I came on board for 6 months continuous training.
Our time, we did 18 months training. Yes, so for a regular officer, you have to be there longer so that you'll be toughened.
It's been a bit challenging in the sense that there's family, there's work. You, the female, at a point you're on maternity leave. When you're on maternity leave, about 3-4 months, the men are being trained. They are going to see, building their confidence, building their skills. But there is a case, you have to be with your kids. So when you come back, you have to do the extra work to catch up.
The military is a male-dominated institution, and it is a fighting unit. And just like many people have the mindset that fighting is for men, guns are to be operated by men, and the same way the military functions, placing a lot of priority on the men. And that is why we have the men playing the combat roles and the women playing the non-combat roles. We support them. Again, because of that division, where we are not playing combat roles, the treatment does not seem to be the same. And so it will look like we are not being treated fairly. Yes, we are not being treated fairly, one would say, because why should one be a preserve for the men? And why must we just be in one corner? But sometimes I tell people and they sort of disagree with me. I say it's a fighting unit. We have to look at it in that way. We should be treated well, but if it comes to strength, I will say the military should be 50%. I have my reservation on that though.
I've had no serious challenges. Like I said, the guys have always been supportive, and anytime I feel I can't do anything, anytime I call on them, if there's any other duty I have to perform outside work, they always try to touch in and just make sure the task is performed.
We, the women, are not being treated differently from the men.
Sometimes you have to climb this heavy vehicle, even when you are not feeling so good.
Our roles are being expanded. We are leaving what I'll term the traditional role of the female, and we are delving into the traditional role of the men.
The treatment is the same. If it's 24 hours, it's 24 hours for the women. They don't distinguish anything. We all do the same work.
Increasing women participation in the Ghana Armed Forces should be encouraged to take up positions, and they should also be motivated by their colleagues.
One typical day I can describe is when I was supposed to join an exercise march and shoot. That time I had a 4-month-old baby, and I had to leave her at home at 3 a.m. for training and return in the evening around 4. And it was very hectic.
I don't have any regrets at all because I have enjoyed every bit of the training, right from the military academy down to coming here for my sea training, going to UK for my continuation training, coming back, being on board, sailing up and down, sailing to Nigeria. I don't have any regret at all.
So I think women have been given the free will to explore.
I have no regrets.
It takes hard work and determination. You have to be determined. You have to set your personal goals, and you have to get a role model. You have to get someone to look up to.
You have to remain disciplined, because discipline is what will send you far. It is believed that most people who have attained heights have remained disciplined.
Nothing is too difficult when you put in your best.
And the sky will be our limit.
Empowering female participation in peace and security for national development.
And now to our living standard series. Now, grocery prices have actually skyrocketed, and we'll tell you more about that when we get back after this break. And that's all we have for you in this package of the polls. Don't forget that we have more stories for you on our website, myjoyonline.com. You'll get updates on all of our running stories there. My name is Blessed Sogan. We'll see you same time tomorrow.